It's 20 years since the Governor-General sacked Gough Whitlam. For many of those caught up in our greatest constitutional crisis, the time has finally come to tell it how it was.
If I had removed the Governor-General surreptitiously, I'd be as popular and respected as Kerr became for removing me surreptitiously.
Good evening and welcome to Four Corners. In tonight's program, Gough Whitlam, Malcolm Fraser and other key players revisit the 1975 dismissal in a spirit of remarkable candour. We hear for the first time just how much Malcolm Fraser knew in advance and just how little Whitlam saw it coming. There's nothing quite as fascinating as the big moments in history as revealed from the mouths of the players themselves.
The Governor-General may dissolve the Senate and the House of Representatives simultaneously.
He was a battle between Fraser and Whitlam. It was a battle of two men of huge ego and two great power seekers. They were jousting, or they were plunging at each other in the arena, mounted on their war horses, you know, the Liberal Party and the Labor Party.
Well, of course it was a grab for power. It was just political thuggery.
Now, therefore, I, Sir John Robert Kerr, the Governor-General of Australia, do by this my proclamation dissolve the Senate and the House of Representatives. Given under my hand and the Great Seal of Australia on the 11th of November 1975 by His Excellency's command, Malcolm Fraser, Prime Minister, John R. Kerr, Governor-General. God save the Queen.
Say, God save the Queen. Because nothing will save the Governor-General. The proclamation which you have just heard read by the Governor-General's official secretary was countersigned Malcolm Fraser.
How do you think the Liberal Party looks on November 1975 today?
They ought to look upon us as a matter of pride.
Nobody trusted Kerr. He acted dishonourably and deceptively.
These extraordinary events of 1975 started and finished here in the Senate. It was a battle between the Labor government led by Gough Whitlam that dominated the House of Representatives and the opposition led by Malcolm Fraser that controlled the Senate. Fraser blocked the budget, demanding an election, but Whitlam, determined to stay in office, defied the Senate. The climax came when the Governor-General, Sir John Kerr, dismissed Whitlam, forcing an election. As a journalist, I covered the crisis, talking to both Whitlam and Fraser. What I learnt was that 1975 was more than a constitutional crisis. It was a personal and psychological battle between three proud and ruthless men.
It's time for children. It's time to teach them. It's time. It was free. Yes, it's time. It's time to love. It's
time. Whitlam came to power in 1972, a self-styled man of destiny, determined to change Australia's direction after 23 years of coalition rule. But Whitlam was a flawed hero.
He had his head in the clouds. He had great dreams, of making Australia a more civilised place, some of which he succeeded in doing. But I don't think he was ever the rough, tough politician that is called for in the hurly-burly of Australian politics.
Gough was a man in such a hurry. We all recall he couldn't even wait to have a proper ministry. He and Lance Barnard had to be the duo that ran everything. They kept falling over themselves. And it was a heaven-sent opportunity for an opposition.
In March 1975, Malcolm Fraser became Liberal Party leader after a party room coup. Fraser, as tall as Whitlam, was thick-set, cunning and lethal. Convinced of the superiority of the Liberals as Australia's ruling party, Fraser was searching for an early election.
All those for an election, all those who want Mr. Whitlam to get the hell out of Canberra.
It was a Balmain-born son of a boilermaker, John Kerr, a brilliant student, a Labor Party member, barrister and Chief Justice of New South Wales, who was Whitlam's choice as Governor-General. The Labor Party saw this office as purely ceremonial, but it would fall to Kerr to arbitrate the looming crisis.
Yes, I think there are many things that we have to do.
Whitlam thought he knew Kerr, but right from the start, he misjudged his man.
John had aspired at one stage to move into politics, and as a matter of fact, most people thought he would go into politics. In fact, there were some who thought he'd become Prime Minister. He took the job when it was offered essentially because he always wanted to be at the centre of where things were really moving, the centre of power in Canberra.
Well, he was a gregarious man, highly intelligent, and generally a likeable man. I was very fond of him.
I think he was a man who regarded his own importance very highly.
And I think once he became Governor-General, he thought, especially in the state of crisis, here was his chance to show Whitlam who was number one, who was running the country.
When Whitlam appointed Kerr Governor-General, there was one issue they never discussed, the powers of the office. Whitlam believed the Governor-General could act only on ministerial advice, but Kerr had a different view.
Gough believed that in all things the Governor-General and John Kerr, as Gough's man, would have to do what Gough Whitlam advised or told him to do. Gough did not believe that the Governor-General, or the office of Governor-General, had, at the last resort, an independent capacity.
Convention says that a Governor-General acts on ministerial advice. But there's a quaint exception to this rule. It's when a Queen or Governor-General calls upon the reserve powers to resolve a crisis. These powers, often called the royal prerogative, can be exercised without ministerial advice or even against the advice of ministers. Sir John Kerr had a fascination with these powers, and he was certainly prepared to use them.